Hi, and welcome to Crafts with Ash DIY and Decor. My name's Ashley, and today I'm going to share with you my top 21 favorite Halloween DIYs from 2021. I think that these DIYs came out so spooktacular, terrorific, and all the fun Halloween-y things. Before we get started, if you wouldn't mind, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, hit that bell, and turn on your notifications so you're notified about all of my content coming up. I upload a bunch of times a month, and of course, going into the holiday and spooky seasons, I'm going to be uploading a lot more fun content I know you're not going to want to miss. Now, this is a compilation video, so if you hear some weird things throughout the whole video or repetitive things or the editing is kind of weird, that's because I took a bunch of videos and put them together for you so we can relive the fantastic DIYs from last year. So let's get started. My first dupe came from something I saw on the Kirkland's website. So I went to the Dollar Tree and I grabbed 3 of those silver box containers. I think they're supposed to be like gift boxes, and I purposely got silver because I'm going to galvanize these, and this will just make it so much easier. Now, I did make 3 of these, but I'm just only going to show you the process on one of them, but I did the same thing to all 3. So the first thing I did was take a kitchen sponge and I just dabbed all over the little box, and you can see that I'm using black acrylic paint first, and then I'm going to go in with white acrylic paint, or I'm sorry, white chalk paint, the Waverly chalk paint, but it doesn't matter, just any kind of white paint. And then I'm going to bring it all together by using my steel Waverly chalk paint. So this process, I love galvanizing things. I just think it's so much fun to do this because, I don't know, you can just really make something really pop when you galvanize. And, you know, I've been doing this for a while on my channel. Of course, I did not come up with it. I did learn, and ever since, I've just really loved doing this. So just like I said, I'm going to go in with some white paint and do it to all 3 of my containers. And I'm just going to make sure, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. This is just kind of something you have to decide as you go along. And what the white, I like going with black first and then doing the white because the white dulls down the black. And then I'm going to take the steel, like I said, and I'm going to dab that all over because it just dulls down both the white and the black and kind of brings it all together. So I'm really happy that I found these containers because you can see that they already have that shine to it that a galvanized metal would have. So I typically would go in with my metallic silver, but I found I really didn't need to because this had just enough shine to it. So I just dabbed it, and then if I needed to, I would blend all 3 of my colors on the sponge and kind of go back and forth between the black, the white, and the steel. So, like I said, this process was so easy to do. So, I mean, it's something you absolutely cannot mess up. So, and like I said, this is one of my favorite things to do is to galvanize pieces. So after I went in with my steel, after it dried, I did take my Waverly Antique Wax just to kind of add that rust look. And I'm going around the edges, just anywhere where these containers would naturally rust. So I went around the top edge. I went around where the lid stops, like kind of towards the top. And then, of course, I went down around the bottom. And then I just randomly put some little dabs throughout the whole container as well. So, I mean, like I said, I just loved this look. It is so neat. And if you're a farmhouse person, this project is perfect for you too because it's not a ton of Halloween color, and I think it's just enough. But if you're not a farmhouse perfect, this is perfect too because it, like I said, it still accomplishes the Halloween look. So I'm just going to go ahead and go through with my Waverly Wax, and I'm going to do this on all 3. And like I said, I do love how each one of these came out. Just wait till you see the close-up and the texture. It's so cool. So after those dried, look how neat that is. So after those dried, I took these printables that I got from Google, and they were just free printables, and I went ahead and I cut them out. Now, I sized them to two different sizes, just the size that it originally had. And if I can find the link again, I'll go ahead and link it in the description box. And then I made these a little bigger. So I did opt to go for the bigger ones on these containers because they are taller. So what I'm doing is just using some Mod Podge, and I'm just simply going to glue each one of these down. And I did cut around each one of the graphics so there was no white paper, and I just printed it off on white paper. Now, you can do the trick where you print it off on white tissue paper. I've seen a lot of crafters do that too. But I just used regular white computer paper to do it, and it worked just fine. So after I went ahead and put my piece down, I took some Mod Podge and I brushed over it to go ahead and seal it in. Then I did this for all three. I have a witch's brew, a venom, and then a potion. So I thought that these were really fun canisters just to display. You can put stuff in them, or you don't have to, just use them for decoration. But I really loved how these came out. So after I had them all glued on, I took that sponge again, and I'm just going to dab my Waverly Antique wax around the edges, and you can see that I'm using my finger to kind of blend it in, and this just gave it that rustic look around, and I think that this really completed this and brought it all together. So I, like I said, loved how these came out. You can use them for decoration, or you can actually use them for storage. These might be cool to put on a coffee bar, and you can put your K-cups or your sugar packets or tea bags in them. And but yeah, I just think that these came out so fun. So I'm just gonna finish off putting my wax all over it, and I love that rust look. And then after I was done dabbing, these little canisters are done. Here's the one from the Kirkland's website, $20.99, not bad, but if you see, it's no longer available online. Now, of course, I couldn't find the exact printables or the graphics that they used, but I think mine came out pretty cute. What do you think? This second dupe came from someplace called Christmas Central. I had never heard of it. I saw it on Pinterest, and I went to their website, and they have the cutest decor. Obviously, they have Halloween decor as well. But to start off, I'm going to start off with this jack-o'-lantern that has the cutouts, and I'm going to give it a really good coat of pumpkin orange apple barrel paint. And I am going to paint the whole thing. I did not worry about the back, though. Then I'm going to take this cookie sheet, and I'm simply going to cut the inside of my cookie sheet out, so I'm just left with the middle of it. So I'm just going to cut around it just so I have that to work with. Again, these cookie sheets you can get from the Dollar Tree, and they do come in a 2-pack. And I use these a lot more than I thought, and of course not ever for baking. Okay, so I want to get rid of, there's like little bumps, and I want to get rid of them, so I'm just going to use my scraper, and I'm just kind of flattening them out. So I'm just going to go through. Now, you could actually thought about this. You might have been able to get away with using aluminum foil too. I did not think about that till after the fact, but you know, if you have these, then you can go ahead and use it. Now, it did curl up a little bit, so in order for me to paint this, I did go ahead and duct tape it down to my surface, and it really helped keep it down and stop it from curling. So after I had it all taped down, I'm going to take that steel Waverly chalk paint again, and I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to do the same thing we did in the first DIY. We're going to galvanize this. So again, I'm just going to dab my steel paint all over this just to kind of dull down the shiny, but I'm not going to cover the whole thing up. I'm just going to, you know, dab in random places. Real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for choosing to stop by today. I hope you stick around with me for a while and join my crafting community by hitting that subscribe button. I am almost to 10,000 subscribers, and when I get there, I'm going to be doing a giveaway, so you are definitely going to want to be subscribed and hit the notification bell so you can be informed when that giveaway is going to be. If you're returning, you already know I love you so much and I appreciate all of you. Without all of you, I would not have almost 10,000 subscribers. So thank you so much. And again, I love reading your comments. Please keep commenting. Please liking. It really is helping my channel to grow, and I could not be happier. So thank you so much for all of your love and support. So after I went in with the steel, I'm going to go over it with the black acrylic paint and then the white. And then I'm going to go over it one more time with that steel just to kind of bring it all together. And look at that. I mean, I just love how that looks. I love the galvanized look, like I said. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to go in with the Waverly Antique Wax and go ahead and just do random places of that. Now, you don't have to worry about the edges of this because we're not going to be actually using the edges. We're just going to use the middle. I just needed a sheet to use. So don't worry about the edges. Just pay attention to the middle. Okay, so after that's dry, I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to fold it like you did in first grade to make a fan. So I don't know what it's called, but I'm just going to call it fan fold it. So I'm just going back and forth and folding it. And that way it creates that fan look. So then I'm going to spread it out, and now I'm going to take my pumpkin and I'm just going to kind of rough trace around it. So it's not perfect, but I'm just kind of using it as a guide. Then I'm going to go ahead and cut that down so this piece fits behind the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. So this project was super easy to do too. One thing about all these dupes is that they were very simple to put together. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and just use some hot glue, and I'm going to hot glue the piece of metal or aluminum to the back of my jack-o'-lantern, and make sure that it's adhered really well. I'm going to go in with some hot glue, kind of tack it down more, and look how cool that looks already. I love that. All right, so the original piece from Christmas Central had like little dabs of gray in it. Personally, would not have added this, but for the sake of the dupe, I'm going to go ahead and put it on. So I am just taking the little flat side of my makeup sponge, dipping it in that steel, just making like one little boop down, and then using my finger to brush it. Now, like I said, I really didn't like that look, so I went ahead and added some Waverly Antique Wax around the edges just to add my own little touch to that. Now, I might go back and paint over the steel, but once you see what I did, I guess it kind of just blends in. But I'm going to go ahead and go over the edges, and then I'm going to go around the eyes, the nose, and the mouth as well. So this kind of added just like a little spooky touch, and this was not on the original dupe, but I don't know. I just felt like it needed something else, so I opted to add it. I did go a little darker on the stem as well. And then I kind of just randomly dabbed in the middle of my jack-o'-lantern to kind of add that rust and make it look old and antique. Okay, so next I'm going to take some raffia and I'm just going to make a bow. And then you can see off to the side there I have a silver little star. That came off of something from 4th of July, and I just added some antique wax to it to kind of dull down the shininess. The original piece had a star on it, so that's the only reason why I'm adding it. I don't think I would have if it didn't. But what I did was just hot glue that raffia to the bottom of the stem, and now I'm just going to simply hot glue the star on top of the raffia. I'm going to cut down my raffia tails, and then that was pretty much it. That completed this dupe. Even though, it would not have been my first choice to put the steel on, I liked how it came out. Here it is on the Christmas Central website for $53. And I think that is adorable. I loved it. But here's mine. What do you think? before we begin, I just wanted to show you these are going to be the paint colors I'm going to be using. It really does not matter what purple or orange or green you use. I just wanted to give you an overview of the colors I will be using today. And because I like my tier trays to be all cohesive, I'm going to follow those colors plus black throughout this entire video. So for my first DIY, of course, we need a beaded garland. So I grabbed the pack of colored beads from the Dollar Tree, and I picked out the largest orange and the largest purple, and I got 5 of each. Then I grabbed some of my 16 millimeter beads, and I put them on a skewer, and then I'm going to paint these in the lime green color. I mean, I've tried different methods of painting beads, and they're all messy, so just do whatever works for you. Next, I got some 20 millimeter beads, and I painted those black. And again, I'm doing 5 of each size bead and color. Then I took some orange twine, and I'm just going to add a little hot glue to the end to make it a little bit pointier and help me bead all my beads through. And then I'm just going to start putting my beads on. And the pattern I followed was purple, lime green, black, orange, and then an eyeball. So I got this eyeball out of a pack of big eyeballs, and I'm just going to use my hot glue gun to melt a hole. Now I'm not putting any hot glue in there. I'm just simply using the heat from the hot glue gun to make a hole. And of course I need one on either side. And I just kind of test it and just kind of see how, how big my hole has to be. So once I get my hole big enough, I'm just going to thread it through and pull it out the other side, and now we have this really cool eyeball. So then I just continue with my pattern, and I do this until all of my beads are used, and I do continue with the eyeballs as well. So in the end, you should have 5 of each color bead and then 5 eyeballs. So I'm just going to continue to make my holes and to get all of the beads and eyeballs on. Next, I took this green twine and orange twine, and I'm wrapping it around my finger several times. I didn't count, but you can just do it until you feel like it's good enough. So I'm just wrapping it around, then I'm going to pull it off and cut off the ends. And then I'm going to cut off a little piece of black ribbon. I'm going to loop it around it. And then I'm going to take one of the ends of my garland, loop it through, and then I'm going to tie it on. So we're making a tassel. So I'm just going to go ahead and knot it on there. And I do knot it a few times, and I actually do go back and tack it down with some hot glue. All right, next I'm going to cut a little piece of that green twine, and I'm going to tie it towards the top to give it that tassel look. And I am going to wrap it around a couple times and then tie it in the back. So I make several tier tray videos. I absolutely am obsessed with tier trays. So if you are a new follower, you're definitely going to be in for some tier tray ideas. Okay, then I cut the loops at the bottom to make them all individual strands, and I'm just giving a little haircut, making sure they're even. And then I am actually going to take that orange piece that I just cut off, and I'm going to wrap that around the green just to add a little bit more color there too. So again, I'm just going to wrap it around. I'm going to tack it with some hot glue. Oh, then my ADD kicked in, and I'm like, oh, I should fray the edges of this black. So that's what I did with that. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the orange and wrap that around. Sometimes that happens. And then I'm just going to cut it off and tack it down with some hot glue. All right, so that end is finished, and you do want to make sure that you push down all your beads so they're flush to the top of your tassel. Next, I took these wooden stickers from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take this big jack-o'-lantern, and I was trying to figure out how to attach it, but so what I decided to do actually was tie a knot at the end, and then I'm going to hot glue the stem to the knot, and then go ahead and wrap the twine around the stem. So And then I believe I tack it down with some, I tack it down with some hot glue there too. That way it gives it an extra hold. Then I felt like I wanted to put something on that side, so I took this wooden spider and hot glued that on. And there we go. Now we have this cute little eyeball Halloween beaded garland. Next up, I got this little house from Dollar General, and this, of course, was $1. So I'm going to take my wire cutters and take off the wire hanger on the back. Then I'm just going to use my white chalk paint, and I'm going to give this 2 coats of that. So then once that is all dry, I am going to take my little chunky brush and my black paint, and I'm just going to dry brush that all over the front of the house. Now look at the texture that this gave. I'm not sure if it's because I put a lot of paint on there or if it's because of the paper that's behind it, but look how cool and spooky that looks. I really love that. And I'm also going to hit the top of the birdhouse as well. The metal on there. And then after that, I decided that I wanted a little bit more color, so I'm going to take that purple and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to dry brush some of that purple on that birdhouse as well. Real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for choosing to stop by. I truly hope that you love what you see today and you choose to stick with me by subscribing to my channel. If you're returning, you know I love you and I love all of your support and I appreciate it so much. So thank you so much for coming back. So I'm just going to go ahead and blend in the black and the purple. I'm just going back and forth. Next, I cut out these words from my Cricut, Home Sweet Haunted Home, and I'm going to take this regular size popsicle stick and I'm going to cut the rounded edges off. Then I'm just going to take my scissors and just kind of rough up the edges a little bit and just make it look jagged. So I'm just kind of going in triangle shapes, if that makes sense, and I'm just going back and forth. And I'm going to do this on both ends. I really thought that this added such a cool look to this craft stick. So I did it on both sides. And that's where we're going to put the word haunted. So then after I did the cutting on this side, we are going to paint that black. So I'm just going to finish up with the making it all rough and, spooky looking. And now we're going to paint it black. Now I did a little bit more than dry brushing, but if some of the wood from underneath came through, that was okay. I was okay with that. So then once that was all painted and dried, it's time to put our words on. So I went ahead and started with this one first, and I'm going to put the haunted on. If you don't have a Cricut, that's okay. You can use rub-on transfers, you can use stickers, you can use stencils, anything you have. And then I'm going to lay out my other words. So I did kind of do this kind of like topsy-turvy, so they're not all in one straight line going down. So I just rubbed on the home, and now I'm going to do the sweet. And, of course, I have to fix it. Okay, now I'm going to rub on the sweet. I'm just trying to get my positioning figured out here. Rub it on. There we go. And then I'm going to hot glue the haunted on. And again, I'm trying to figure out which way I want this to go. And again, none of this is straight because on purpose. I want it to look creepy. And then I'm going to do home at the bottom. Look how cute that looks so far. Ooh, I love this one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and peel that off. And then I felt like it needed some accessories, of course. So I'm going to take this little jack-o'-lantern and I'm going to hot glue this to the bottom right corner of my little house. And then I'm going to hot glue this spider on the top of the house. There we go. So cute. And I'm just adding glue wherever the spider touches the top. There we go. Then we are going to have to make a stand for this. So I'm going to take 2 tumbling tower blocks and I'm going to hot glue them together. And then I'm going to hot glue those to the back of my house. Now, the trick to this is that you want to stand it up. You want to lean it back a little bit so it naturally just leans. And that way it stands up. And then I just went ahead and painted those blocks with the black paint. And I thought this came out super cute. You're going to have to wait till the end to see the final reveal of all of my DIYs today. Okay, next up, I took this hanging sign that, of course, I got from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to use that RIP, the rip at the bottom there, and I'm going to give this one good coat of my steel chalk paint from Waverly. I'm going to cover the entire thing and the edges as well. So once that dries, I'm going to make this look like concrete. So I went ahead and put some Mod Podge in a cup. I put some baking soda in, and then I put some black paint in, and I'm just going to mix it up. Now this is kind of trial and error. You just have to add and keep adding baking soda until you have the texture that you want. So I just kept adding and stirring, and I did add quite a bit of baking soda. So again, I'm going for cement, so you just want I can't even think of the word. You just want to add enough to get the heaviness that you want, I guess. And then you want to dab this on your little headstone. You don't want to paint it on, you're dabbing it, just like I am right here. And the texture on this is amazing. It is so cool. You'll see. And once it dries, it even more so comes out. It's really neat. So then, after I got that all painted, I took 3 tumbling tower blocks and I hot glued them together. And then I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to add that mixture to those tumbling tower blocks as well. Ooh, sorry, I sound like I'm sick. I'm really not. It's just my allergies are terrible, especially in the morning, and that's when I'm recording this. Okay, so I'm just dabbing the mixture all over it. And then I'm going to let that dry. Next, I'm going to go in with a sponge, a kitchen sponge, and I'm going to dab some black acrylic paint all over this. And this is what's really going to bring this to life. This dimension right here, oh my gosh, it just makes it look so cool. I wish you could see this in person. But I'm just going to dab that all over, and then I'm going to go in with some white chalk paint. I'm going to do the same thing, and I use the same sponge the entire way through. So I'm going to go in with some white chalk paint, and look at that coloring that it's adding. It really does look like a headstone or concrete. Isn't that neat? So I'm going to add that on, and then I'm actually going to go in with my silver metallic paint, and this paint I got from Walmart. So I'm going to add that on there as well, and look at that. Oh, I just love this. This is so cool. So I'm going to dab that all over, and that piece right there, the tumbling tower blocks, those are going to be a stand. So this is a standing sign. All right, so next we're going to go ahead and hot glue our little headstone on top of our stand, just like that. And I did have to really reinforce this. What I should have done was probably hot glue this on before I painted it, because once the paint was on, it was kind of hard to get the glue to stick. But if you just use a generous amount of hot glue, you should be good to go. So I'm just reinforcing it with some more hot glue. There we go. And then I did kind of hold it until it's set too. Okay, next I'm going to take more of those little jack-o'-lanterns, and I did dry brush some black acrylic paint on it, and now I'm going to do the same thing to a second one, and I'm just going to hot glue those to the bottom of my little gravestone. And then I forgot that I wanted to add some, oh, no, first I'm going to add this little witch up top. Sorry. You can see that there's a hole, so I really wanted to add something to cover that hole. So I'm going to add that witch, and then I'm going to add some white on top of that because you can see that it kind of blends in. So I am going to go ahead and add the silver and the white just to kind of make it pop a little bit more. Speaking of pop, it just totally popped right off. And again, I think it's because the glue was having a hard time adhering to that mixture. But I kind of liked how the witch blended in because, you know, on some headstones, they have like little statues. So I thought that this was really cool. Made it look like one of those statues. All right, so I'm just dabbing it all over. And then I forgot that I wanted to add some rust to it. So I'm just taking my Waverly Antique Wax and I'm doing the same thing and just randomly adding some of that to different places of my headstone and the bottom as well. And I did go around the words, just any place that would, like, I know cement probably wouldn't rust, but I really just thought that this made it look more aged, and that's what we're going for. Okay, so then I thought, ooh, I should add some moss to the bottom. So I went ahead and hot glued some moss. I do end up taking the pumpkins out and hot gluing some moss down and then putting the pumpkins back on. And I thought that this, oh my gosh, it just totally made this all come to life. So fun. So I'm just going to hot glue my moss down. And just a little bit of moss goes a long way, so you don't have to add a ton. Then I'm going to hot glue my pumpkins back on. Be careful when you do this. You could easily burn yourself. Use a tool or something. All right. And then after these pumpkins are glued on, this little headstone is complete. Look how cool that is. And the texture, you guys, is amazing. You got to try this. Look at that. All right, for the next DIY, of course, we need the stacked books. So I'm going to start off with my orange acrylic paint, and I'm going to paint the top of my books, and I'm going to paint the first little slat on the side. So I'm actually going to give that 2 coats, and all the paint that I'm going to do on these books, I'm going to give 2 coats. I just really wanted this to be bright and vibrant, so giving it 2 coats really helped. So I'm going to do the top, and then that first slat in the front. Now I did get some on the sides, and I'm not going to paint the sides in the orange, so I just took a baby wipe and wiped it up. Then for the middle, I'm going to use the purple acrylic paint, and I'm going to cover that up. I'm being very careful not to get any on the top one or the bottom one. So I'm going to wipe that up with a baby wipe as well. Look at some of that moss on my wipe. Oops. And then for the bottom, I'm going to paint that in the lime green acrylic paint. And again, like I said, I'm going to give each of these 2 coats. Next, I'm going to take a really small brush and black acrylic paint, and I'm just going to go ahead and go in between each of these books just to make it look like they're all separate and just to show the separation between each one of the books. Plus also it adds that little spooky touch as well. So I'm just going to get that all covered. And I really loved the dimension that this added as well. I thought that was super cool. And I took my finger and kind of rubbed it on. And now I'm going to dry brush some of that black acrylic paint all over the books. And especially paying attention to the top. That way it just adds dimension. Next, I'm going to take my white paint marker, and I chose to just hand write. Normally, I hate my handwriting on DIYs, but I just thought, I don't know, I just felt like writing it would be a little bit more Halloweenish. I don't know. To me, it just made sense. So on the top, I'm going to write spells. And then in the middle, I'm going to write potions. And you do want to start at the end and work your way out if you're going to put all your words to one side. So I'm going to write out potions. There we go. And then at the bottom, I'm going to write out hexes. Not exactly sure what that is, but I've seen it. So I was like, okay, that works. Okay, so once I had all my words on. I flipped them to the side, and I'm going to give each one of these sides a good coat of ivory chalk paint. So this is kind of like the pages of the books. So I'm just going to cover each one of those. And then I'm going to take a makeup sponge, and I'm going to dry brush some antique wax on those. Now I did realize watching this back that I'm going the wrong way. It should be the other way to look like book pages, but oh well. I was so focused on trying to make this look aged and old that I wasn't paying attention, but technically the pages would be going the other way. Next, I'm going to take this sparkle ribbon I got from the Dollar Tree, and it is self-adhesive, so I didn't need to use any glue. And I'm starting at one end of that hole there, and I'm going to go up and around and down until that hole is covered. So I took 3 strips of this. Now, this ribbon is really cool because it's like pressed sparkles or glitter, so like glitter's not going to shed, but it's like black and purple, and then it kind of picks up whatever colors are around it, so it was perfect for this tiered tray. So if this is not your thing and you don't want like all the sparkles, you can use whatever ribbon you want. It really doesn't matter. Just you know, customize it to your taste. So then I'm going to add that last strip on there. And next I'm going to take this lime green twine, and I'm going to just wrap it around my books, and wrap and wrap and wrap. And this I didn't cut off at the bottom. I just went ahead and just went all the way around. It's not going to affect it standing, you know, or make it wobbly or anything. So I just wrapped it all the way around until I felt like it was good enough, and then I cut it off and hot glued it at the bottom. I really love these Halloween colors, and when I decorate for Halloween, I do all those colors. I can't wait. It's my favorite. You're going to have to let me know in the comments, do you decorate for Halloween, or do you just go from like fall to Christmas? I'm interested to know. Okay, so to dress this up, I'm going to take some of these black leaves and this purple carnation, I guess, or flower, and this did come off of a Halloween pick, and I'm just going to hot glue those on top. And then I'm going to take these little berries and put those to the side. Now I'm going to kind of speed through this because it was just really trial and error. Like I kept taking things off, putting them on. So I'm just going to kind of let you watch what I'm doing here. So obviously I added one of those eyeballs to the flower, and I thought that was so cool. So any kind of, you know, spooky touch I could add, I love. So I'm just adding more. I think this is so cool. And then finally, I'm going to add some spiders. I'm going to add one to the front, and then I am going to add one on top once I get all the branches, the spooky branches on. I just love this. I just love that pick. This is your friendly reminder that if you love what you see today, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Not only does it really help my channel to grow, but it tells YouTube that you love what you see and you want to see more. So don't forget to hit that like button. Alright, so I'm just going to add this spider right on the top, and after I add that, my spooky book stack is done. Look how cute and like creepy that looks. I love it. Okay, well, of course, we have to have a spooky gnome. Okay, so I grabbed this gnome from the Dollar Tree, and what I'm going to do first is paint all of his skin. I'm going to paint it green. My goal here was to make this look like a Frankenstein gnome, but then it kind of turned out like the Wicked Witch from Wizard of Oz, so you're going to have to let me know which one you see here. So I'm going to go ahead and paint, yeah, like I said, his face and his hands and his ears in the lime green. And then I'm going to paint his hat, his shirt, and his pants all in black. So I'm just going to, I just want to make sure that it's completely covered. Next, I'm going to dry brush some of that black paint on his beard. So there, yeah, so that way it's not so vibrant white. And then I also did paint his lips black too. So I'm just going to brush some of that paint on there. Kind of give him some spooky, creepy vibes. Going all the way around the back. There we go. And then I'm going to take some orange twine and I'm going to hot glue it to like the brim of his hat. Even though I was going for Frankenstein, I just felt like this needed a little bit more color, but I honestly might end up taking it off. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments if I should keep the twine on. So I just went ahead and tacked it down with some hot glue to the front and the back. And then I took a skewer and I'm going to cut off a little piece, and these are going to be like those bolts that come out of Frankenstein's neck. So then I'm going to hot glue one to each side of him, and they're kind of going like under his ear, under the beard. Like, I don't know, there was like a perfect little indent there that I could hot glue it to. And then I'm going to take my silver acrylic paint and I'm going to paint each one of those to make it look like those bolts. I think that's what they're called, those bolts or something. So this is what I thought, kind of made it look more Frankenstein-y. But let me know down in the comments what you think of him, our little guy. So then I took my black paint marker and I'm just going to color in his eyes with black. Ooh, Naya's black eyes. Then I'm going to take that silver acrylic paint and I'm going to paint his belt around the back and in the front. And I felt like I wanted to add something else to his hat, but I really just didn't know. So that's our little guy. All right, next we're going to do something really simple. So I bought this lime green candle from the Dollar Tree, and I purposely got lime green. And all I'm going to do is just take my black acrylic paint and just put black drippy marks all over it. Now, I did let this dry overnight. So, and then I just let the paint naturally drip down. So this is the next day. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to simply hot glue some of these spiders to our candle. And I thought that was really fun. Now off camera, and I literally did this right before I took pictures, which is why I was off camera, I did color the stem with a black marker so it looked like the black flame. Does that sound familiar? So I'm going to add another spider here right on top. And then this little candle is done. Obviously, I'm not going to light it. It's just for decoration. How cute. Okay, next up, I have this little truck that I got from the Dollar Tree. And I'm going to paint this entire thing except for that little fencing in the back on the trunk. I'm going to paint this entire thing in black acrylic paint. And one coat was good enough. I don't think I needed 2 coats. And I also painted the inside as well. Then for that little grate, I think it's called, or the fencing, I'm going to give that a little brushing of Antique Waverly Wax. Then I'm going to take my silver metallic and I'm just going to dry brush over that. I really love how this little truck came out too. I thought it was fun. So I'm just going to dry brush. I did do the front and the back on this. There we go. I'm just going to dry brush over that. And then I did dry brush some black over that brown too. Next, I'm going to take this calendar I got from the Dollar Tree, and I cut out this piece from the back. It says Happy Halloween. And I cut it down, and then I ripped off the edges. So this piece, as it was not going to fit on my truck. So I did have to rip off the little witch at the bottom. So, because I am going to have to make it smaller. So I ripped off the little witch, and now I'm just kind of testing it, ripping where I need to make it the right size. And just trying to figure out where I want it to go on my truck. So I'm just going to rip it even more, making sure it fits. There we go. And then by using some Mod Podge, I'm going to Mod Podge this down. So I put some Mod Podge on my truck first, then I'm going to put my little calendar page, and then I'm going to put some Mod Podge on top. So there we go. Ooh, so cute. Okay, so now I'm going to put some Mod Podge on top. And then I actually took my black acrylic paint, and I'm going to dry brush some of that over this sign too, so it kind of blends in with the black truck. So there I'm just going through, and I'm going to use my finger to rub it all in. Next, I'm going to take this pack of wooden stickers again, and I'm going to take 3 of the jack-o'-lanterns, and I'm going to paint each of them in orange acrylic paint. And I did paint the other orange one, the one that's already orange. I did cover that too because it did have a little glitter. So I just painted over it to kind of dull it down a little bit. And then I'm going to dry brush some black acrylic paint over that as well, kind of give it that creepy look. And then I'm going to hot glue them together, kind of like this. I don't know how to describe it, but just, you know, like a triangle, I guess. I don't know. Just like that. Topsy-turvy, kind of just spooky. And then I'm going to hot glue those to the front inside of our little fence there at the back. I know it's not called a fence. Somebody help me out in the comments. Okay, so then I got this little skeleton, and this was like from a hanging garland, and I'm going to have to perform surgery and just cut off his legs, cut off his arms. There we go, I had to cut off his arms. And then I had to shave down a little bit of his shoulder bone, so I'm going to cut those down as well so they fit in the truck. There we go. And then I'm going to hot glue his, I was going to say body, but I'm going to hot glue him to the inside of the truck, but you want to make sure that his head is looking through the window. And this actually was a perfect fit. So it like wedged right in there. So I'm just going to reinforce it with a bunch of hot glue so that way he doesn't fall. So I'm just holding it down there, and then I'm going to take some hot glue and throw some on the other side as well. This is so cute. I was thinking I should have given him like a hat or something, but of course I thought of it after. Then I took one of his arms and I cut it in half so it was a little shorter, and now I'm gonna hot glue it, kind of looking like he has his arm out of the truck, like just driving down the road with some creepy spooky pumpkins. Again, I'm reinforcing it with some hot glue. Look how fun that is. Okay, next I'm going to take some of these flowers that I got off those Halloween picks. And I'm just going to go ahead and put them in the back. I do end up hot gluing all this down. I'm just kind of arranging it first. So I'm just taking some random pieces and just sticking them back there. I love these black flowers. I think they're so cool. There we go. I'm just going to hot glue them down. And then I'm going to take these bones that I got in a pack of bones, and I'm just going to put those in the back. Just like that, like kind of in an X. And then I'm, of course, going to hot glue those down as well. There we go. I thought that was kind of funny. Now I'm just going to tack it down with some hot glue. There we go. And after that, this truck is done. Look how fun that is. For my first DIY, I'm going to start off with this little scarecrow sign that I got from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to paint each one of the pieces with white chalk paint. Now, you don't have to go for full coverage, just so the majority of it is covered. Now, the middle piece right here had a ton of glitter on it, so I just sanded it off. Then, of course, I used my little ladybug to clean up all the glitter. And then I proceeded to paint the rest of those little pieces. So like I said, you really don't have to make sure that, you know, every single, you know, that it's completely covered. Just give it a good go at it, I guess. So after your scarecrow dries, I went ahead and I took off the ribbon on the back, and it's just stapled on, so you can just pull it right off, because we're going to have to deconstruct this a little bit and then put it back together. So now we're going to put it back together. So I just flipped the pieces over, and I am going to put all that middle piece in there too, just to measure the gap in between. But now we have to connect the head and the pants. So to do this, I'm just going to use the craft stick. And if you saw, all the pieces were touching, whereas before, when they were on the ribbon, there were spaces in between. But now I want them to touch. So then I took a longer craft stick and hot glued it right in the middle to kind of look like arms. Next, I'm going to take some Waverly chalk paint in white and just go ahead and paint my craft sticks. Now, you do not have to paint the back of this. You can if you want to, but it's totally up to you. So I'm just going to make sure that my craft sticks are covered. Then I wanted this little thing to stand. Now, I know you're sitting there going, this is really ugly, but don't worry, it'll transform. So to get this to stand, I just hot glued some tumbling tower blocks on the back, but I did see that it was a little wobbly, so I actually stacked another one on each one of the legs. So there's 2 tumbling tower blocks behind each of the legs. And then I realized that it was still a little wobbly, so I did the same thing in the front of the legs. And like I said, this will all be covered. So as you can see, it's not really standing very well. So I am going to go ahead and put some tumbling tower blocks on the front. So I just hot glued one down, and then I'm going to add another one on top of that, and then do the same thing on the other leg. And once I did this, it was okay, but I still didn't trust it. So what I actually ended up doing was hot gluing one in the center of each. Well, you'll see in a second. But first, I did go ahead and paint these ones that I just glued with the white chalk paint. So you can see that it's not gonna work. So I do fix that in 1 second. But first, like I said, I gave this a good coat of white chalk paint. So real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for choosing to stop by today. I really hope that you love what you see and you stop by on a great day because we have an amazing collab for you. If you're returning, you already know I love you, I appreciate you, and thank you so much for choosing to come back to my channel. I can't wait to share so much more content with you. All right, to fix the problem of it falling over, like I said, I just went ahead and hot glued one in the middle of those, the 2 in the back and the 2 in the front. That really seemed to do the trick. And then I went ahead and hot glued, and then I went ahead and painted those ones as well. Then after that, I took this satin pillowcase that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to open it up, and then I'm going to slip it over this little structure here. I bet you can tell now what we're going to make. So I just slipped it over, and then I'm going to cut the bottom where it was really, really long. So I just want it to kind of end where the feet end of the scarecrow. So I'm just going to use my fabric scissors, and I tell you what, I love these fabric scissors. I got them from Dollar General for like 10 bucks, and they are great. I loved it. So I didn't exactly cut a straight line on purpose because, you know, like the bottom of ghosts are kind of squiggly. So I didn't worry about cutting it in a straight line. Now at the top, I did fold it over. Now this is the back, and then I'm just going to use my hot glue to go ahead and kind of tighten it a little bit and just bring in the corners there just to kind of get the shape of the head. So like I said, there we go. I'm just going to hot glue the one corner, and then I'm going to overlap the other corner, and then I'm actually going to hot glue the top down just a little bit, which you'll see. So now I keep kind of positioning it, setting it up to see how I like it. And now this is when I decide I'm just going to go ahead and hot glue these little corners down as well. Because like I said, I am trying to get that shape. There we go. Okay, so after that, I needed some black fabric. So what I ended up doing was I took an old black t-shirt and I just cut out 2 little eyes and then a mouth, and then I hot glued those on. So to get the eyes to be the same size, I actually folded this little piece in half, and then I went ahead and cut them out, and look, now they're 2 of the same size. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the mouth. And at first I cut it and I realized it was a little too big, so then I cut it down a little bit. But this black t-shirt worked out perfectly fine. Look how funny. See, the mouth was just a little too big. So I'm just giving it a little trim here. And then after all my pieces were cut, I did go ahead and hot glue them down. I used hot glue for this whole project. You can use fabric glue if you want to, but I use Gorilla Glue, and it seems to, be a really strong hold. I love using Gorilla Glue, hot glue. That's all I use. I would definitely recommend it. I do actually have a link in my description box from Amazon for them if you'd like to pick some up. All right, so then I realized that those arms were just a little too high, so I did take our little guy out, and now I'm just going to move that popsicle stick down a little bit, and then I'm going to stick him back in our little sheet. Then that middle part that I painted white, I'm actually going to paint that black now. I changed my mind and I wanted that to be black, so I'm just going to give that a really good coat of black paint. And I am making sure to paint the edges of it as well. Then I'm going to take this little metal spooky sign that I got in a pack from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to give that a coat of white. Now, if some of the metal showed through, that's okay. I actually liked that. So now I'm going to use hot glue and super glue to glue this down on that little black piece. And I am using super glue because hot glue and metal do not mix, so hot glue alone would not stick. So I'm going to flip it over and stick it right in the middle. And then I'm just going to simply take my little ghost and I am going to hot glue this sign onto my pillow there, the pillowcase, the ghost. And I did purposely do it at an angle as well. All right, so then I decided I wanted her to be a girl. So I took this little purple glitter bow that I got from the Dollar Tree, and it did have a little skeleton in the middle, which remember that because you'll see that skeleton in a little bit. But I just decided to, at first I was just going to cut down the tails, and then I just decided to cut them off completely because it was covering her eyes. So I just go ahead and cut off the tails. And look at all that glitter. That's why I keep blowing the ghost, because there's just a ton. And then I went ahead and hot glued it at an angle at the top. And then I took one of these bat rings, cut off the ring part, and hot glued that into the middle of her bow. Look how cute she is. Okay, so then I decided I wanted it to look like she was holding that sign. So I folded the pillowcase in a little bit where like her arms would be holding it. And I really thought that that made this look like legit, like a ghost was holding that sign. So I'm glad I thought to do that because I thought that brought it all together. Then I decided, you know what, this little thing, she needs to light up. So I took some lights from the Dollar Tree, and green ones were the only ones I had. So I just went for the green, and I'm just going to simply flip the little structure scarecrow over, and I'm just going to use some painter's tape and tape the top piece to the back of the head, which you'll see in just a second. And then I'm just simply going to wrap the rest of the lights around that structure going down. So I'm just going to wrap and wrap and wrap, and I am trying to evenly place the lights. Then I'm just going to hot glue the battery pack to that tumbling tower block in the back. And you do want to make sure that you put the screw side up where you would unscrew it. And then all I'm going to do is simply stick that structure back into the pillowcase, and we have this super cute, spooky little girl ghost, and I absolutely love it. I know it's a little weird with the green lights, but that's all I had. But I tell you what, it's kind of cool. I mean, I might switch them out, I'm not sure. But I really loved how this came out and thought it was super, super cute. But you tell me, what do you think? For my second DIY, I picked up this dollhouse from the Dollar Tree, and you've probably seen a lot of people do this. So I really wanted to make this into a haunted house, but I kind of did it with a twist. So what I did first was I popped out all of the windows, the door frames, all of those little pieces. And then I'm just going to take my black acrylic paint and paint this entire thing with that. Now it is plastic, so it was kind of like slippery, if that makes sense, to paint this. So you do have to be careful, but you also should probably put a couple coats if you're using acrylic paint. Now, or you could just spray paint it and it would be a lot faster and cover so much better. But I just went ahead and painted this with the black acrylic paint. After that, I took these little pieces that had popped out. And for these white pieces, I'm actually just dry brushing the black over it. I'm not painting them black completely. So for like the little window frames, the door frames, and then for the green windows, I am actually going to paint those a solid black. But it's funny, I actually don't end up using those little windows that I'm painting now. But like I said, for the green ones, I did want those to be solid. So I'm just going to go through and paint up all of my little accessories. Now, to make it easier, you can use a skewer to hold these little pieces because you can see that they're kind of finicky. They move everywhere. So I did have to hold it down with a skewer. So after all of my little pieces were painted, I did go ahead and pop them back in. Now you can see at this point I did not paint the inside of the house. I do go back and paint that entire inside because I realized you would be able to see it. So I did go back and do that. But I'm just going to go ahead and pop all of my little pieces in, and obviously I realized it split into two, so it was easier for me to pop them in. Now, at this point I did put those two little windows in. But you're going to see in a little bit that I end up taking them off to do something a little bit more spookier. Now, after I got my pieces in, I did go ahead and slide the roof back on. And then I'm going to pop that last little window in on this side. It was funny because I actually kept having to hide this little house from my daughter. I bought it a while ago and because she wanted to play with it. So finally I just went out and bought her one because she kept stealing it from me. Okay, so then to add a little bit of texture and dimension, I took my silver metallic paint and I just kind of painted over everything. I'm just dry brushing over it. I really do feel that silver metallic paint really adds a lot to the look. So I love putting this paint on Halloween projects because I don't know, I just feel like it adds that spooky touch. So I also made sure to dry brush over the door. And then this time I'm actually going to just hot glue the door at an angle so it looked like, you know, the house was obviously haunted. And this is where I decide to change up those windows just a little bit. So for the two front windows at the bottom, I actually popped them out. And now I'm going to go through again and just kind of dry brush more of that silver metallic paint over. And I actually got this paint from Walmart in the craft section. And I tell you what, it comes in handy a lot, especially if you've seen me galvanize things. I use this a lot because it, you know, kind of has that metal. Well, it's metallic. So I'm just going to continue to dry brush all the way around my house. Okay, so next I took a mini craft stick and I am just breaking it apart, and I really want like the rigid edges. I want it to look like it's broken wood. So I'm going to take two of them and break them in half, but I'm not using like the rounded parts at the end. And then I'm going to put them at a crisscross angle on each one of the windows. Now, if I had to cut one down, I did use my scissors, but you're going to see that I actually kind of go back and forth and kind of do like, I don't know how to, like X pattern or like a V pattern. And then once I had all of my little pieces cut, I'm going to go through and I'm going to paint that with brown paint. I'm going to kind of make it look like the windows were boarded up. So you can see I am, you know, roughing up the edges a little bit. So now I'm just going to use my nutmeg paint, and I'm just going to paint each one of these. So then after I painted them with the brown paint, I actually dry brushed some black paint over each one of them, and to kind of make it look like it was dirty and old and gross. So then I just simply hot glued these onto the windows to make it look like they were boarded up, and I did glue them like at an X, and I really loved how that came out. And there we go. Okay, so to add one more little touch, I took a little bat sticker and I just hot glued that to the top of one of those windows on the roof. And there we go. Now our house is done. Next, I took this $4 bat wreath that I got from Five Below, and you could make this too, but I figured for $4 I would probably spend that much trying to put this together, so I thought that this would actually be the better deal and save me some time. So now I want to figure out a way to attach my house to the inside of that wreath. So what I ended up doing was using those black small zip ties and zip tying two of the ties together, and then I'm actually going to put it through the side windows underneath my wreath and attach it. And this worked out perfect. I love the way that this wreath came out. It was so cool. So I did that on both sides, and it really did hold these down, or hold the house down. So I'm just going to attach two zip ties together and then put it through the window on the other side, wrap it underneath, and then just pull really tight. And then I did go through and I cut off the excess zip tie. And then I took this perfect little sign that came in a 2-pack from the Dollar Tree that says, "Welcome to our haunted home." And I'm going to dry brush a little bit of black paint around the edges just to make it look a little bit more spooky. So then I'm going to take my wire cutters and I'm actually going to cut the wire in the middle, just like that, and that's how I'm going to attach it to the top of this wreath. So there was a bat there, so I did end up pulling it off. These are just really easy. They just pull right off. And then I just wire them on. I just twist the wire around and around, and that's how I attached that sign. Now, after I had the sign attached, I kind of adjusted it a little bit so it didn't hang so far down, but it kind of was over the top. See, I just pushed it up a little bit. And then I just kind of reinforced it with some hot glue. All right, to add a little bit more, I'm going to take these purple flowers that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to hot glue one on either side of my haunted house. And these are the ones that had the eyeballs in it, I think. Maybe not all of them had the eyeballs, because I don't see any eyeballs on those, but... Or maybe they did and I took them out, I don't remember. And then, to add even more, I'm going to take these purple branches, and I'm basically just going to stick them in my wreath, following, like, on either side. I don't know how to explain this. Maybe just watching it would be better. But real quick, I want you to look at the door of my haunted house and look up, and you see that little skeleton head there? That was in the middle of that purple bow that I hot glued on our ghost in the first DIY. So I wanted you to know where that came from. So I'm just kind of sticking in my little purple branches all the way around. And I'm adjusting my bats as I go too. And then I'm going to stick two on the bottom, kind of sticking out. And now I thought that this one should light up too. So I took another strand from the Dollar Tree and I'm just going to simply just push all the lights in there. Now I am going to go in with some tape and I'm going to tape down the areas where the lights need to stick. Now I am making sure too to put a little light bulb or whatever next to the windows. Now, I can't say that this is very bright because there's not a big opening, but I do think that it gives off enough light. Then again, I am going to go through and hot glue my battery pack down. And you can see that I did go ahead and paint the pink part on the dollhouse. I didn't worry about the purple because you couldn't really see that, but you could definitely see the pink. So now I'm just taping down my lights where I want them to go. And I'm kind of just arranging them, like I said, so a light would be near a window. So at least you would see a little bit of light come through there. But I absolutely loved how this wreath came out. I love the purple and black for Halloween. I just think it's so neat and spooky, but like, I don't know. I just think that it's elegant too. I think there's like something elegant about it. But after my lights were in, that was all to this wreath, and I love it. What do you think? DIY, I'm going to pick up this picture on an easel that I got from Big Lots after summer, for their after summer sale, and it was only $2. And the easel's actually connected to this, to the picture. Now, if you don't have this, that's okay. You can just use a picture frame or any kind of wooden picture would be good, anything like that. So the first thing I did was give this all a coat of white paint. Now, this project did change like in the middle. So in a second, you're going to see it painted orange, but ignore it because I actually just ended up covering it with this scrapbook paper. And as you can see, I actually painted the outside, the frame, with black paint. So sorry about that, but I changed my mind halfway through. So what I did was I just put the paper inside the frame and used my fingernail to kind of create where the inside was, and then I cut it out, and now I'm just going to use some Mod Podge and Mod Podge this down into the frame. So this was another super, super easy one too. So I am going to make sure that it's completely covered. I'm going to pay attention to the edges and the corners. That way it's all adhered. Then I'm just going to put my scrapbook paper onto my little easel. All right, so then I found this really cute card at the Dollar Tree, and this is like in the section, not like where the cards are, but this is like individually wrapped. So I went ahead and cut off the back flap of it, and I thought this card was perfect for the scrapbook paper. And now this bottom piece actually kind of comes apart here, like it lifts up. So I just took some Mod Podge and just glued the two together so they stayed together. And then I'm going to use my 3D pop-up tape that I got also from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to cut off a few pieces, put them on the back of this card, and then put the card in the middle of the paper. It was simple, so easy to do. And I can't wait to put this out. And I don't know if you saw the front of that little card said trick or treat. So I thought it was super cute. So I did put a little piece in all four corners and one in the middle. And now I'm just going to push it down in the middle of my easel. Look how cute. And see the polka dots at the top? I mean, how more perfect can it get? All right, then just to add a little bit more, I took these orange spiders from the Dollar Tree. I cut off the ring part, and I'm just going to hot glue 3 down in one corner and 2 in the other, and kind of arrange them. And then just to finish it off, I just dry brushed some black acrylic paint over my spiders so they weren't so bright orange. But I love how bright and colorful this sign is. I totally think it's perfect for Halloween. It would be even cute to put out on your front porch with the bucket of candy or wherever you're sitting. But this is just adorable. What do you think? To begin making this, I'm going to use a black glass bowl from the Dollar Tree, and I'm also going to be using this funnel. Now, it comes in a pack of 3, and I'm using the middle size funnel. So the first thing I had to do was I actually had to cut the funnel part off because I only needed the bigger part. So I hope that makes sense. So you can see that I'm just cutting it down. I did actually go to my saw and cut it down, and then I'm just now using my scissors to trim it up. What I want to do is I wanted to make the bowl a little bit higher so the broom part was higher. So I am just evening it all out. Was that even a word? And making it even, and I'm sanding it down. And then I'm going to use my super glue and hot glue to glue this on top of the bowl. And this is just going to add some height for when we go ahead and create the broom at the bottom. So again, I'm just going to use some hot glue and the super glue for that instant hold and permanent hold, and then attach the funnel to the top. Now, I did let it set for a little bit because you absolutely want to make sure that the glue is dry. So after that, I took this luau skirt and I purposely kept this skirt from summer because I knew I would be doing this DIY, but you can of course just use raffia. You don't have to have the skirt. So all I'm doing is just hot gluing it around the top of the funnel part. Now you can see that it's long, so what I'm going to do is cut it down and just keep wrapping it around to make layers, because you can see kind of to the left there's a big hole there. It kind of looks like it was cut at some point. So I'm just going to do this until I feel like the broom part is full enough. So I'm just going to go around and around and make sure that, you know, it's all covered. So I'm really just taking my time, and I am using a lot of glue for this because I really want to make sure that it is, you know, very stuck down. So I am, just applying a lot of glue. Now you can use E6000 or super glue if you would want to, but I don't know, I found that hot glue was fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually, because obviously you can see that the luau skirt is too long. So in a minute after I have this all glued down, I'm actually going to raise it up on a basket, and then I'm going to kind of give it a haircut and cut off the bottom. So you're going to see that coming up in just a second, and that way it made it all even. Okay, so now this is where I say I'm going to raise it up, and now I'm going to go ahead and just chop, chop, chop. Now the length that I'm going to is the bottom of the bowl. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just give it a haircut. We kind of have like a Cousin It situation going on here. So we're going to make this look more like a broom. Now this was something that when I first looked at it, I really had to think hard about how I was going to do this. I needed something obviously really stable because it's a tiered tray and we're going to be putting stuff on it. Now, so like I said, I just really had to think about how this was going to happen. And when I saw that black bowl, I knew that was perfect, but then I needed some height to it. So I literally just walked around the Dollar Tree looking for anything. And then I came across those funnels, which I thought was perfect. So now I'm just kind of finishing up giving it a haircut, and you can still see that there are some bare spots. So what I did was with the raffia that I cut off, I doubled it up, and now I'm just going to go through and hot glue it to those bare spots. Now, as you can see, I did leave the top of the funnel open because that's what we're going to glue our plate on top of. So just like here, I'm just going through, taking pieces of raffia and just filling in any holes. Now, sometimes I went and hot glued right on the string up top, the little twine that has the other raffia wrapped around it, or I just simply hot glued it to the bowl itself to fill in the holes. So I just did that until it was as full as I needed it to be, and all of the black bowl was covered. So real quick, I want to take an opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for choosing to stop by today. I hope you choose to stick around with me for a while by hitting that subscribe button. If you're returning, thank you so much. You already know I love and appreciate all of you, and I'm so happy that you keep coming back and for all of your support, and I'm so appreciative, and just thank you so much. I am so close to 10,000 subscribers. And once I get there, I'm going to do a giveaway. So make sure that you are subscribed and that notification bell is on so you will get a notification when that giveaway is posted. Okay, so once I had my entire bowl covered with the raffia, I am just taking a baby wipe, dipping it in some Waverly Antique Wax, and basically just brushing it on. Now, the broom on the original piece was darker, so that's why I opted to make this one darker, and I'll be honest, I like it darker. So I just basically just covered it all up. And I just did this, and I kind of did layers. Like I went around to the first layer, I would lift that layer up, do the second layer, and I mean, it was impossible for me to get every piece of raffia, and I kind of do like the two-tone effect to that as well. But I just think that, you know, oh gosh, I can't wait for you to see the final product. It came out so cute. So then I just kind of, you know, just stained the raffia, cutting it down, making sure it looks how I want. Okay, so for the tier tray parts, I'm actually using these melamine plates that I got from Target. They were each 50 cents, but I do know that the Dollar Tree also sells plates. I just would not get anything heavy. I would just get like, you could get even a plastic plate and spray paint it whatever color you want. So here's what I'm doing. I, for extra support, decided to glue down a wood square plank. But I realized that I really had to cut the top of the funnel down to make it even with the top of the raffia. So, because it wasn't going to work if I didn't. So right now I'm taking my knife and I'm just kind of cutting it. That way it is, like I said, it's all even with where the raffia starts. And then it'll give me a good surface for me to hot glue and glue that on. So again, I'm going to use my hot glue and super glue and put that square right on top. Now, so it would blend in, I did go in with some black acrylic paint, and I'm going to paint around the edges of the square, and then I'm going to paint the bottom. So I did, but first I reinforced it by going around the bottom and putting more hot glue. And then as you saw, I did hold it there for, you know, quite a while until the glue set up. You really want to make sure it's dry. So now, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and paint the edges. You don't have to paint the top. I just use that as a palette and to put the paint on. So I just painted the around the edges and at the bottom. And just make sure that it's all painted, and that way it blends in. Now you can use acrylic paint, chalk paint, whatever you have. Okay, so after that, I went ahead and wiped the rest of the paint off, and now I'm going to use my hot glue and super glue and glue down this plate. There we go. Okay, now again, I am pushing down on it to make sure that it is fully adhered. So I do hold it for several minutes. Now, to give it more weight, I added some paint bottles, and these were pretty full paint bottles, and I am just going to add those on top to, you know, weigh it down so the glue will set. Oh gosh, I cannot wait for you to see. Okay, so next I took this dowel rod, and my dad had given this to me, but you can use a plunger stick and do the same exact thing. So what I needed to do first was find out how tall I wanted that first tier to be. And I decided that I actually liked the length of the bottle. So what I'm doing right now is measuring the length of the bottle just like that, because I liked the height of that. So then I took it to my miter saw and I cut it down. And now again, by using hot glue and super glue, I'm going to glue this to the middle. Now here's the thing you really want to watch, because I actually had to take this off and do it again. I don't know if I show it, but I did. You want to make sure that this stick right here is in the middle of the broom so it looks like it's all one piece. The first time I did it, it was not even, so it looked weird because it was offset from the broom part at the bottom. So you do want to make sure that it's even. See, I did show it. I had to take it off and reposition it. That way the stick was right in the middle of the broom part. So now I'm just going through and I'm gluing it on again to make it even and to make it actually in the middle. So now once that's on, I'm going to add my bottles again and weigh it down. And now I'm going to put hot glue and super glue on the top of that stick, put my plate on, and again, you want to make sure that this top stick is even with the bottom stick and the broom. I hope that's making sense. So right now I just put my bottle on top to weigh it down. So with that other part of the dowel rod, I actually cut it at a 45-degree angle, because if you look at the original, that's how it's cut. But then when I cut it off, it exposed a lighter wood. So after I sanded it down, I'm just taking my Waverly Antique Wax and I'm just staining it, and it ended up being the same color. So if you do use the plunger stick, do the same thing. Dip a baby wipe into the Waverly Antique Wax and stain your stick if you want it a little darker. Now what I'm doing is I just brushed on some black paint to kind of make it look dingy and old. And now I'm going to do that to the stick that I had already glued on. I didn't think to do that until after I glued it on, of course. So now I'm just going back and just rubbing on some black paint. And that was the black paint that was on the baby wipe that I used to wipe off that square piece. I hope this is all making sense. After that, I added some super glue and hot glue to the top of that plate. And again, I'm going to add something to the top to weigh it down. And I let this set completely overnight. All right, well, now that our tier tray is made, it's time to add some spooky DIYs to go on top. So I picked up this little snow globe maker. Like, you're supposed to make a snow globe out of it, and it's a bulb. So I decided that this would be perfect to make a cauldron. So what I'm doing is I'm just hot gluing 3 little square beads that I got from the Dollar Tree at the bottom, so that way my cauldron will be able to stand up. And I just hot glued them like in a triangle pattern. And then I'm going to paint this entire thing in black acrylic paint, and I did have to give it a few coats. Next, after my paint was dry, I decided that I wanted it to look like potion was kind of dripping out of my cauldron. So I'm just going to take my hot glue gun and I'm just going to make some drip marks going down. And I'm also going to put a bunch of hot glue around the rim of my cauldron as well. So I'm going to do long drip marks, I'm going to do short drip marks. So I'm just going to go all the way around just to create that spilling over look. After that, I'm going to take this little plastic piece that came in the little snow globe, and I'm going to push that back in, and then I'm going to take these leftover eyeballs and start hot gluing them on top of the plastic piece. I want to create like bubbles, like it's bubbling out. So I'm just going to hot glue 3 of them together. And if you don't have the eyeballs, you can always use ping pong balls or other styrofoam balls. It doesn't matter. I know that Dollar Tree does sell the little styrofoam balls too. Then to fill in the spaces, I'm going to use this vase filler that I also got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to hot glue all of these little guys in there too. And I'm just using different different sizes. Now I'm using all the white ones because I'm going to paint this, so I thought it would be easier to paint, but you can use whatever color you have because obviously you're going to paint over it. So I'm just filling in all the little holes, just kind of make it look like it is boiling over. All right, after that, I'm gonna take my lime green paint and I'm just gonna paint all of my bubbles. I'm gonna go around the rim of that plastic piece, and then I'm going to paint all of my hot glue drips too. This project was so fun to make, but yet it was so simple as well. After my paint dried, I'm going to take this decal that I cut from my Cricut, and it says, "I put a spell on you," and I'm going to go ahead and place it on the front of my cauldron. Now, if you don't have a Cricut, that's okay. You can use rub-on transfers, stencils, stickers, you can handwrite it, you can print something off of the computer and Mod Podge it on. There are many different alternatives to having a Cricut. Then to add a little spooky touch, I went ahead and dry brushed some black acrylic paint all over my lime green bubbles and the potion dripping out of my cauldron. And I really love the touch that this added. I think it added dimension, but also, like I said, it gave it some spooky vibes. So this was so cute. And like I said, this was extremely fun to do as well. So as you can see, I'm just kind of using my finger too to rub it in and to make it look creepy. And here is our little spooky cauldron. How fun. And there we go. All right, for my next DIY, of course, we have to have the black flame candle. Now, this candle is a battery operated candle that I actually got from Dollar General. This was $3, and I could not find for the life of me, and I went to several different Dollar Trees, their battery operated candles in this size. So I just opted for the Dollar General and it was fine. So I noticed when I was looking up a picture of the black flame candle, it had a lot of like this brown writing or pictures around it. So what I did was just dry brushed some nutmeg paint all over like you just saw. And this one has texture on it, so, or like a design. So it actually brought out that design, and so I think that it made it look really cool too. So next, I'm just going to do the same thing we did with that potion, or with the cauldron, and I'm just going to drip hot glue all the way around the rim, and then of course all the way down the sides. This is your friendly reminder that if you're loving what you see so far, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Not only does it really help my channel to grow, but it tells YouTube you love what you see and you want to see more. Then after all that dried, I am just going to go through and paint all of my hot glue. I'm going to paint that black, and then of course you have to paint the flame because it is a black flame candle. Well, this one was super easy. It took me only minutes to make, but added such a great touch to the tiered tray too. All right, so there we go. I'm going to paint the black flame. And now we have the black flame candle. Don't light it. Okay, so of course we have to have the spell book. I am so sorry. I lost footage to this first part, but what I did was I grabbed a paperback book, and this is a small book because it needs to fit on a tiered tray. I took my spackling and I just rubbed it on with my finger, and then I let it sit for about 3 hours to dry. Now, personally, I would have let it dry overnight. I just didn't have that kind of time. I had to get this done, but I would let it dry overnight. Next, what I did was I took a kitchen sponge and I'm going to dab the nutmeg paint all over this book. And I did paint the side as well. Now, I actually got this idea from Bargain Bethany. She is on YouTube. She's amazing. I think it was last year or the year before, she made a spell book, and she actually used tissue paper and Mod Podge, which added that texture, that raised look. I thought that was absolutely brilliant, but I wanted to try something a little different, and I thought about using the spackle, and this worked really well too. So you could use either one you'd like, either the tissue, the paper, the toilet paper method, or the spackling. I will leave the link to that video of Bargain Bethany's in my description box so you can check out hers. Now, everything else I did after this was completely all her. All credit goes to her. Basically, I just watched how she made it and then just recreated it using the same items. So I just, because why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. She came up with the perfect way to make this. So next, after my my nutmeg paint was dry, I just went through and dry brushed some black, and you can still see a little bit of the white on there coming through from the spackle, so that gives it a really neat look as well. So I'm just going in, I'm going around the edges, going in all the grooves. And then I'm going to take a popsicle stick, and this is a regular size. I'm going to cut down the curved edges, and then I'm going to glue it to the side of the book, right where the binding is. So I'm going to make sure that that's all hot glued down. And then I'm going to take my silver metallic paint, and I'm going to give that a coat of the silver. Okay, so I want to know, do you love the movie Hocus Pocus? Or what is your favorite Halloween movie? I am not a scary movie girl, and it's weird because I do love Halloween so much. But I have to say mine is probably Halloween Town. Do you remember that one? Okay, so next I took another one of these eyeballs, and normally they have a hole at the bottom. This one didn't, so I had to use my hot glue gun to really get a hole in there. And then I just used my scissors and just cut the eyeball in half. So this is going to be the eye, obviously. So now I'm just going to cut the front part off. Then I just kind of sanded it down a little bit so it wasn't so rough on the bottom. And then we're going to hot glue that down to the other side of the book. So I'm just using hot glue for all this. I saw that it worked just fine, I think. Okay, so then I took that other half of the eye, I cut that in half, and then I cut it in half again because we're going to make an eyelid. And then I'm going to hot glue that down. Again, this is coming straight from Bargain Bethany because, why reinvent the wheel, like I said. So after I glue that on, I'm just going to go ahead and outline the eye with some hot glue. Now, mine is a mini hot glue. You can see it's a detail hot glue gun. I would actually use a regular hot glue gun because it may come out thicker. So I had to let my first layer dry and kind of go over it a few times so it came out thicker, if that makes sense. So after I traced around the eye, I did the snake on the silver piece, and now I'm just going through and just making those stitch marks. And these are just random little squiggle lines. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. And then see, once that was dry, I went over it one more time. And I think the snake I might have actually gone over 3 times because, like I said, I really wanted that to be thick. And then again, I'm just going to go over everything. Now, the book that I'm using, it did come from the Dollar Tree. Like I said, it is a paperback book, but it is smaller than one of those regular size books. So I thought this was the perfect size because I was, to put on a tiered tray. Okay, so now I'm going to use that other half of the eyeball. I cut that down a little bit. Now I'm going to hot glue the bottom eyelid on. Okay, so now I'm going to put the stitching marks over the lines I just drew or glued on. And I was, looking at a picture of this as I was creating this, but I have to say, this was so much fun to make. It really was. And my daughter loved it. She loved it. Okay, so now I'm going to take that silver paint and I'm going to paint over my snake. And then once the stitching glue dried, I'm going to take my sponge and I'm just going to dab all over the stitching marks. That way it all blends in, those lines that I drew. Now, my sponge actually still had black on it too. So if you're seeing black go on, it's actually a mix of black and brown. But that was perfect because it just added more texture. I would have done that anyways. Okay, so then I'm going to take a paintbrush and I'm going to paint his eyelids with that nutmeg brown paint. And then I'm just going to dab some of that brown and black mixed paint on the snake. Now, I realized it was a little heavy here and it kind of took away from the silver. So I do end up wiping some of that off and then painting over it again with the silver. I really wish that I would have made that snake a little bit thicker. I don't know. I just felt like it needed to be thicker, but that's okay. Okay, so then I'm going to take my hot glue and I'm just going to make a circle. I'm going to outline the eye. And again, I probably did 3 layers of this one. So I let it dry and then did again. Now I'm just adding some detail. This is where it gets really fun because you can do whatever whatever you like and however you like it or want it to look. So here we go. I'm going to add the next layer and then let that dry. Okay, so there were like snakes in the corners, so I'm just going to do my best. These definitely don't look like the actual spell book, but just make sure to put a head on your snake at some point. And I just kind of made like little windy lines. I did my best. Now I'm just rubbing on some of that black. And then I'm going to go over the snake again. Okay, so now, or at least that's what I thought I was just about to do. Okay, so now that the ring around the eye is dry, I'm going to paint that with silver paint. And I do believe I go over this ring around the eye one more time because I just wanted it to be a little thicker. Okay, now here I'm going to go through and cover over my snakes again. Okay, so next I took a lime green Sharpie and I'm just painting the eye color because it was not a yellow eye, and I do think it was a darker green, but I didn't have a darker green Sharpie, so I just used what I had. And then, like I said, I did go around one more time with my hot glue, and then once that dries, I'll paint that silver too. But then I'm going to go and paint my other snakes in the corners. And then that third layer of glue dried, so I'm just painting that. And then I'm just going in and adding some black paint for a little bit more detail. So it's funny, I told my neighbor that I was making this, and she's having a Halloween party next month, and they're actually, it's going to be a Hocus Pocus theme. So she actually bought a big book from the Dollar Tree and asked me to make her one. So I'm super excited to get to do this again. Then I'm just kind of dabbing some of that black paint around the silver part of the eye, and then on top of the snakes as well. Okay, so then I took my makeup sponge and some Waverly Antique Wax and some black paint, and I'm just distressing the pages to make it look like it's dirty and it's old and antiqued. So I'm just kind of dry brushing that on. And then I did go ahead and paint the binding of it brown. Now I think I cut the footage, but I did go ahead and dab some black paint on there. I'm going to start off by making some pretty cool things for my apothecary display, and I'll talk more about that in just a minute. But the first thing I did was I just went to the Dollar Tree and kind of just bought any kind of mini glass bottles or glass jars, and I'm going to make some little potions or powders. Now, so many DIYers do this, and I love everything I see. So I thought I would try my hand at doing, you know, something that I came up with, and it's so simple to do too. So all I did was take these little jars, and they did have a cork in them. So I removed the cork, and then I'm just taking this funnel so it's easier, and I'm just going to put glitter in each one of these little glass bottles. I'm going to fill them about halfway up with glitter, and then I'm going to go through and I'm actually going to put some water in just to kind of make it look more like a potion. So after I'm done filling them all with glitter, I did go in and fill them with water. Now the water kind of separated a little bit, so which you'll see in a little bit, but that's okay. I thought that they still looked super cool. Now I did go through and hot glue all of those corks in because I have a 4-year-old, and enough said. So just as an extra precaution, I did glue them down. Next, I took this package of mini glass jars, and I am going to actually take poster paint, and I'm going to paint the inside of each of these little jars with different color poster paint. Now, I love this because it's kind of like a glue in a way, and this went on really well. So I just used the different colors. Some of them I mixed, and I did actually do 2 packages of these little glass jars. Then once I felt like I had enough poster paint, I did go ahead and I put water in these as well to make it look like a little spell or a potion. All of these little jars were so fun to create, and I just got to use my creativity and just kind of make them look how I wanted them to look. So this was so fun to do. So back to the apothecary display. If you've been following me for a while, you know that in the summer I made a flower market display out of crates from the Dollar Tree. So for the fall, I decorated it like a pumpkin patch, and now I'm going to do an apothecary. So after I had all the glitter in the jars, I went through and painted all the lids black. Then after that, I took a paintbrush and I just am dry brushing some of that black paint over each one of my jars, including the cork on top, just to give it that spooky and creepy look. I wanted these to look very old and dingy, so I'm just dry brushing some of that black paint on each one of those. Then I went ahead and I did the same thing to the little jars as well. All right, so after that, I took this bottle, and I actually have 2 of these, and it's filled with seashells, and I took off the tag, removed the raffia up top, And I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to use the poster paint to paint the inside of this jar. Now this jar is a little bigger, so it's not going to fit in the crate itself, but this is going to go on top. So I always like to decorate the top of my little display as well, because I just think it makes it look so fun. So I'm going to add water to this one too. I'm going to stir it up, and then I get kind of just, you know, work with it until I like it. Gonna give it a little shake. And then I decided this one needed a little more water. And then I just used my paintbrush to kind of just swirl it around a little bit. Now, before I glue the top on, I took a little black paint and put it in the bottle as well to make it look kind of dirty and old. And now I'm gonna hot glue my cork in that too. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take that black paint and just dry brush over the glass bottle itself and the cork. Okay, so then I had this bottle that I also got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to go ahead and put some poster paint on the inside, and I'm going to try to paint the inside as best as I can. It was kind of hard to get my paintbrush in there. And then I went ahead and filled this one with water as well. I didn't fill it all the way up, just to the neck of it, I guess. And then I'm going to add more poster paint, just, you know, to give it more glitter. These came out really fun. I really liked these. Just going to mix it up. And then I believe I put a little black paint in this one. Yep. In this one as well too, and it made it a really disgusting color, but that's kind of what I was going for. So then I thought, you know what, I'm gonna make this look even spookier, and I put some googly eyes in this. Now it didn't really look that great because they kept like flipping over, and it was really hard for me to flip them, you know, so the eyeball was facing up. But I thought that but with the angles that you can see the eyeballs, it was pretty cool. So I just added some little googly eyes inside my little jar. I kind of thought that was funny. And then I went ahead and hot glued that lid down too. Next, I'm going to take that black paint again and just do the same thing and dry brush some of that paint all over the glass and the lid. Now, I had these little labels left over from a DIY I did a couple weeks ago, and I'll leave the link in the description box below. So I just used these to go ahead and Mod Podge onto the big bottles. I'm not going to worry about all those little bottles, but I did go ahead and Mod Podge labels on to these bigger ones, and I really loved the effect that this gave. I just think it really added to all of this as well. So I did a little label on that first one, and I'm going to do this one. And I am putting a layer of Mod Podge underneath my label, and then I'm going to go through and put a layer of Mod Podge on top as well. Okay, so I did have another one of those seashell bottles, and this time I just painted the inside. I could not put water in this because it actually had a crack in it. So obviously if I put water, it would spill out. But I was just very careful to stay away, you know, not to touch the crack. It actually has like a hole, so it's broken. But I just, you know, I was just going to put that over the back. And this one, I mixed the yellow poster paint and red to kind of make orange. And I just went ahead and painted the inside. And then I followed all of the steps. I went ahead and hot glued the cork in, brushed over it with my black, and then Mod Podged a label on. So real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new, thank you so much for choosing to stop by today. I really, really hope that you love what you see and choose to stick around for a while by hitting that subscribe button. If you're returning, you know I love you, you know I appreciate you, and thank you so much for coming back to my channel, and I can't wait to share more spooktacular content with you soon. All right, so then I found this bottle in my stash, and it's yellow. It's kind of like iridescent yellow. So I just sprinkled some glitter and then used the rest of my water. And I'm just like putting a bunch of different colors in there just to kind of make a really cool combination. And then I'm just going to shake it up. Now this had like a glass ball lid. So I thought that that was really cool because it was different. And then as you saw, I put some green food coloring in there, mixed it up. Now I'm going to hot glue my little cap in there. And then I'm just going to paint, or well, dab some of that black paint all over this bottle. I really loved this one. This one looks so cool. And then I'm just going to use one of those labels again. And the labels I did just print off on like a regular printer, and then I just cut it out, and obviously I just Mod Podged it on. So it was so easy to do. And these were free. I just did a Google search, and like I said, I will leave the link in the description box below. So the only difference is for this one, after I Mod Podged it on, I didn't like how you could actually see like where the label ended or like the sides of it. So what I did was I took that black paint and just went along the edges of that label, and it made it all blend in. So it made it look really, really cool. And there we go. Now we have some really cool potions. All right, now we're going to make some DIYs for the mantle. So if you remember, I actually made a little pumpkin sign for my mom's mantle. So this is actually the back of it. So this sign is reversible, and she can use it for fall, and then she can turn it around and use it for Halloween. So I did end up painting this orange at first, and then I decided that I really did not like it. And you can see that I'm only painting the inside of this cupboard. This is like a cupboard door. And then I went through and I painted the outside, the frame of it. But I do go through and I started dry brushing over the orange. And like I said, I just really did not like it. So I did end up just fully painting this entire thing black. And here we go. I'm just going to paint the whole thing black. All right, so then I decided that because there's orange underneath, I actually went through and sanded it so some of the orange came through, and I used a very coarse piece of sandpaper because I really wanted that orange to come through. I apologize that not all of this sign is in frame, but this is the best I could do to get it mostly in frame. So I'm just going through and sanding it down, making sure to pay attention to those edges too around the frame. Okay, so now that my board was prepped, I'm going to take 3 of these little jack-o'-lantern ornaments, and I'm going to cover in the hole with some holes with some spackling because I don't want the holes to be seen. And then I'm just simply going to paint each one of them with the pumpkin orange Waverly chalk paint. So these were obviously really easy to do, and I just painted them up. I'm sorry, I used the pumpkin from Apple Barrel. Correction. Pumpkin from Apple Barrel. Now, this brush had a little bit of black on it, so you can see that it's not like a bright orange, and that's because, you know, the black is mixing in, which, of course, I love that look, so it was perfect. So I'm going to apologize in advance. I thought I recorded, but I didn't. I put this design on that board, and I did download it from Etsy. It was under $2. I'll leave the link in the description box below, but my mom actually saw this on Pinterest, and I found it on Etsy and thought it was perfect. But it says, they're creepy and they're kooky, mysterious and spooky, they're all together, ookie the, and then you just add your family name, the blank family. So I just thought that was perfect. It was really fun to make. So then I just hot glued those 3 little pumpkins underneath the decal, and now I'm just kind of rubbing some black paint along the jack-o'-lanterns. And then I'm going to go over the white as well, just to kind of distress it a little bit, make it a little spooky and creepy. But I absolutely love these. I'm actually going to make a few more as gifts, so to hand out for this spooky season. So I really love how this sign came out. Now the mantle, I kind of went with like an orange, black, and white theme. I didn't mean to, but that's just kind of how the direction it went. So I just kind of took it and ran. So a lot of this stuff is going to be the same colors. All right, for our next DIY, I took these two, I think they're cardboard, or I don't know, these little signs, and one says boo and one says eek. And I'm going to paint both of them in a couple coats of that apple barrel pumpkin paint. Now, I'm only going to show me doing one of these, but I did the exact same thing on both. So I'm going to paint each one. Now, you have to get into every nook and cranny. And I am going to give it several coats. Then after that was dry, I'm going to take some black, and again, I'm just going to dry brush over my words to distress it, make it look old, dingy, creepy, spooky, all the things. And I am paying attention to the edges as well. I just love the look that this gives. This is your friendly reminder that if you're loving what you see so far, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Not only does it really help my channel to grow, but it tells YouTube that you love seeing my content and you want to see more. So smash that like button. So if I got a little heavy with the black in some areas, I just went over it with the orange, no big deal. All right, after that, I took these two wooden square planks that I got in a pack from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to paint each one of them in black acrylic paint. And I only painted one side. You don't need to do both. But I did make sure to paint around the edges. Okay, so once that was dry, I'm going to take each one of these words, and I'm going to hot glue them to this little square. Now here's the thing. I need the top of the words to be straight, meaning, so that meant that I actually had to glue this kind of crooked. I hope that this makes sense, but I did use those little wood blocks to help hold it up, which you'll see here in a second. So it is gonna look like it's glued at an angle, but the tops are actually flat. We're going to make these into candle holders. So I ended up using two of those blocks, the eek one, and then I only needed one of the blocks for the boo. Then after my blocks were on, I just went through and painted the blocks, but I also painted that dry hot glue on the little base as well. That way it all blended in, because I did use a lot of hot glue. I want to make sure that this is stable. So I just painted all that so it all matches and it blends in. And then I just did the same thing to the boo sign. So like I said, I only needed one block for this one, and it was right where the exclamation mark is, or the exclamation point is, like where the dot would be. So I just went ahead and I did put hot glue underneath the word itself and then underneath the block. And one block really seemed to work. And then I also painted that as well. All right, next I took these two little floral discs or something. I don't know. They were in the floral section at the Dollar Tree in the summer. And I picked up a bunch because they're great for rounds. So I'm just going to remove all the stickers, and they had like a little hanger or something. And then I'm going to paint each one front and back with this black paint. And I'm going to, of course, do the sides as well. I think I did a few coats too. Although it doesn't really matter. Well, I guess it depends on where you're going to put these. So I am using my skewer. Here's a little tip to hold my pieces instead of using my fingers, so paint doesn't get all over my fingers. Okay, so now I'm going to use super glue and hot glue to glue my discs on top. Now, this is why I said you have to make sure that the tops were level. So the bottoms are going to be kind of weird, but the tops need to be level. Then to help support it, I did go ahead and flip it over so the glue would set. Then also to give this extra support, I did end up putting a little tumbling tower block behind these as well. So you're going to see the boo, it keeps tipping over. So that's when I decided to add a tumbling tower block to the back of it. So I glued, see, timber. So, Timbu, just kidding. Please don't unsubscribe. Okay, so I'm just going to hot glue one of those tumbling tower blocks to the back, and then I did end up painting that black as well. You just want these to be straight up and down for candle holders. I might have put 2 tumbling tower blocks. I don't remember. I'm going to show you right here on the eek. So this is where the part where the black circle is. Then I paint those black so they all blend in. And now we have 2 really cool candle holders, and they look really fun. Now, of course, if you have candle holders, you have to have candles. So I picked up these battery-operated candles from a set of 5 from Hobby Lobby. And you've seen me do this several times before. I'm just going to use my hot glue to make drippy marks. So I'm going to go through and do this on both. And some of the drippy marks I made short, some of them I made long, but I made a lot of drippy marks. And then I also put a nice thick layer on the rim as well, the top of the candle. Then after the glue was dry, I just simply went through and painted the hot glue black. Easy peasy. These actually have a remote. I got the pack of, it was 5. A 5-pack from Hobby Lobby, and I really loved it because it was only 20 bucks and it had a remote. So I thought that was a really good deal. And it had different sizes candles as well. 2 small, 2 medium, and 1 large. Then after my paint was covered, I took a baby wipe, and now I'm just kind of brushing on the black paint very lightly underneath to kind of make it dirty looking and to grunge it up a little bit. And I did this on both. And that was it to decorating these candles. It gave it such a cool effect, and it looks really neat when it's lit up. Okay, so I want to know down in the comments, have you decided or have your children decided what they are going to be for Halloween? What are the costumes in your family this year? I mentioned in a previous video that I'm thinking my daughter's leaning towards Winnie from Hocus Pocus, and then I thought that my husband could be Billy, and then I could be Binks, just a very simple black cat, wear all black, add ears and a tail. So let me know in the comments what your family's planning on dressing up as. Okay, so for the last DIY for my mantle, I had this sign from my mom's front porch for fall. So I decided, because it was two-sided, to flip it over, and it is a chalkboard obviously, and I'm going to paint the rim of it in a couple good coats of black paint. Then I printed this decal off for my Cricut, and again, I will link the Etsy link in the description box below. Again, it was like under $2. Again, you can use stickers, you can use rub-on transfers, anything. But I thought that this SVG was so fun. So I'm doing the first layer first, which is all the orange, and now I'm applying the white. And now some of my decal, when I was weeding it, it ended up missing. So you will see that I am going to go back and fix it. But I just thought it would be fun to do a Halloween countdown, especially with my daughter every day, because she is obsessed with Halloween, just like my husband and I. And then, I don't know if you caught it, but my transfer tape kind of ripped up some of the paint. So I'm just going through and touching it up around the sides. And then I'm going to take these little felt stickers, and I am going to put them like with the coordinating word. So it says when witches go riding, so I put a hat there. And then I decided to take off the sticker ghost, and I'm going to replace it with one of these felt ghosts. And I wanted to put these stickers on to make it more cutesy, because it is a countdown for my daughter, so I wanted it to make it cutesy, but she's obsessed with Jack Skellington, so I loved that this one had his face on it. Definitely wanted to keep that on there. And then I added these little bats to where those sticker bats are, and I do take off those sticker bats. Now, the witch hat kind of covered a little bit of the word, so I did go ahead and trim it down a little bit. I cut a little bit of the top off. And now I'm going to go through and hot glue them all down. I just thought that this added a really fun 3D effect, and like I said, it just added something cute for kids. It's not so spooky. Although my daughter wouldn't care. She loves spooky. And I had these in my stash, and I thought, oh, what a perfect way to use them. Okay, so like I said, my transfer kind of got messed up, so I'm just replacing the pieces. And all I did was reprint the little grave or the headstone. So I'm just going to go ahead and fix that real quick. After that, I'm just going to dry brush some black paint over. And that was it to this sign. It is so cool. I can't wait to use it every day for my daughter. She'll be so excited. Then to give it one last final touch, I took some of that silver metallic paint and I'm just dry brushing it all over the frame of my piece. And that was it. That was how simple it was to make, and I love that it's reversible. I can use it for fall and for Halloween. So I love that it is a twofer. A two for one.